Hey y'all, welcome to The Loop, presented by Midwich. I am your host, Joe Dunbar. Always happy to be here with you guys. We are into the first half of August right now. I've got an interview today with my buddy Hugo Chevrette from SFM, a sister company of ours in Canada. We're all part of the Midwich group. Hugo and I are going to dive into our AV on Air podcast booth. We'll talk a little bit about the hardware and the design, as well as the workflow and some things. But before we do that, you guys know I have a couple of updates. It's a short week this week for me, so we got a couple of quick updates, a couple of key ones that I want to drop. One piece of firmware update, and then we'll get into it with Hugo. The first thing I want to get into, our Tech Connect Roadshow is coming to the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul in Minnesota. This is especially fun for me. For most of you who know me, know that I'm from Minnesota and spent quite a bit of time living down in the Twin Cities area. So we've got a lot of great partners in that area. On October 8th, we are coming through with the Roadshow. We'll drop a link below. If you're in the Twin Cities area or the surrounding region, I know my friends in the Dakotas, Iowa, even eastern Wisconsin don't get a ton of road shows and visitors and stuff like that. So please, it's not a terribly far drive. Come join us down in the south side of Minneapolis there. I think we're going to be in Bloomington. The link will have all the info below. So, hit that, register, come join us. I will be there. I'm looking forward to getting together with all my fellow Minnesotans and all our regional folks here and showing off all the lines we have, all our partners, and just getting into some good conversations. In addition to that, another big announcement. I have two huge announcements and one little one. This is the other big one. We've launched our partnership with Resi. Resi Media is the company I'm talking about. If you're not familiar with them, Resi makes video, they make quite a few things, video and streaming solutions for anybody who's doing that type of work. Traditionally, they are probably most popular in the house of worship space, but there's tons of work and opportunities for them in corporate, in enterprise, and some other media. So if you're doing any kind of streaming with any regularity, there's a ton of tools. There's some hardware and software solutions as well. So I'll drop the link below. We're going to have them on the AV Exchange, I think, getting into the fall here. I want to say if it's September, October. I'll double check the date and let you guys know. We'll do an introduction to Resi, but for sure, if you're doing any streaming, if your customers are in that space at all, you're going to want to check them out. A lot of great tools available from Resi. Last announcement I have, it's a little one, but I really love letting you guys know about this stuff. Our friends over at Epiphan have released a new version of firmware for the EC20 camera that they have, their PTZ camera. A lot of new features. My favorite is certainly the redesigned preset interface. It's a lot easier to work around and deal with there. You can, we'll drop the release notes below so you can go check them out. That's all I'm getting into today for announcements because we're going to jump into it with my buddy Hugo. We're going to talk about the AV on Air booth. We're going to talk about the hardware design, kind of Hugo stepping into it, as well as a little bit of the workflow and how we were moving stuff around and how quickly we were able to deliver, leveraging products from all of our partners. So let's jump into it with Hugo from SFM. All right, so we're here. Hugo Chevrette. Hugo, thanks so much for joining us on the pod today, my friend. Welcome to the show.
That's a pleasure, Joe. Always a pleasure chatting with you, as you know.
Yeah, likewise, a couple of guys who can get deep into the weeds. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock so we don't go too crazy because I know we could talk about this all day. Hugo, I brought you on because I wanted to talk specifically with you about our experience at the AV on Air booth, our podcast booth at InfoComm, and we've kind of been breaking out smaller versions of this for different events and things like that. But before we get into talking about AV on Air, I certainly would just love to give the listeners who are new to you some background a little bit. So you work at our partner, our sister company in Canada, SFM, and
yes, exactly.
You guys, I see we've got the Behind the Rack logo up on the screen. You guys run the Behind the Rack pod, which I enjoy quite a bit. I really liked, you had Monty and Christian on. Yeah.
Christian, from Bird Dog.
From Bird Dog. I enjoyed that episode pretty recently on some NDI workflows, but definitely we'll put the link below. You guys are on YouTube just like us. So in addition to the podcast stuff, why don't you just tell the folks who aren't familiar with you, like a little bit about your role at SFM and your background, kind of where you come from.
Good, but maybe we should not forget that there will be some crossovers between Behind the Rack and The Loop. You'll be coming to Montreal shortly. We'll have you on the show and you'll have us on the show. So can't wait for that.
Yeah, I'm very excited about both those. We're just trying to pin down some schedules, man, but it's happening. I'm going to book flights this week, I think. So
yes, a little bit about me. I come from a reseller background. Not what we call in our business an integrator. I was really with a reseller who was specializing in post-production. So a lot around Avid, Pro Tools, Media Composer, high-end color grading workflow. So shared storage, So I was working with a reseller for 17 years, local to Montreal, and then after I joined a national reseller in Canada, based in Vancouver, for another 5 years. So I have a good understanding of post-production workflow, VFX pipelines, and about 3 years ago I joined SFM, which was my first foray into distribution, and it's a great experience. Bridging the traditional AV world with my knowledge of post-production that we call broadcast here at SFM and at Midwish. But bridging those two words is great. I learned a lot about networking when joining SFM, a lot about control systems, UC. So it's great to now have a broader knowledge of those industries and those verticals, which are merging more and more, as you know.
Yeah, AV
this very often.
Yeah, AV is just so broad and really covers, like, it's a niche. I say this a lot, that AV is not really a niche industry. It's a niche of every industry. Like, it's in all of these industries, and each of the verticals, as you touched, like, live production, post-production, enterprise work, like, all of these things are their own discipline kind of within the thing and have their own set of, things to know and skill sets and disciplines. So,
with democratization of the production tools, like the video editorial, the mixing systems like the DAWs, some larger enterprise, some larger companies now have their own marketing department who are producing content a little bit like we do here.
Right.
So, we see a lot more of these systems getting integrated in companies with AV or even without AV sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we often refer to them as podcast studios, just because, which becomes somewhat of a catch-all for, like, rooms with recording capability for cameras and audio. And I've seen marketing departments use them to produce pods, of course, but also clips for social media and all sorts of things.
Yes.
It just becomes like a creative space, which is really fun and kind of brings us perfectly into what we're talking about today. So most of the folks know, but for those who don't, at InfoComm and other events throughout the year, primarily InfoComm is the big one for us. We do a podcast studio within our booth. It's called AV on Air. I'm sure you folks have seen on the YouTube channel some of the interviews we've done and the episodes we've released during the shows. Hugo, you were an integral part of helping us with our workflow this year and helping kind of make things happen and get together. So we've been working on this for years. It started off with a very basic and small design. It's grown over the years. Most recently, Jeff Barnes was kind of the head of the design and making sure that we can work with our partners to build what we need. But Jeff recently got a new opportunity this summer and took that. So we had to bring in, some big guns to step in because Jeff, those are big shoes that Jeff filled. So
exactly.
I'd just love to know, Hugo, you got involved in this a little bit in the sense that it was already in motion. There's already a design and,
Yes.
some hardware put together and stuff, but it wasn't fully baked. So I'd just love to hear a little bit from you, like, what that was like getting a design. Did you, you made some changes, I know, to the design. If you could just tell me a little bit about the hardware kind of side of it and any influence you had.
Yeah, so I knew I was coming to InfoComm to help Jeff, and it was in the books and the plans for about 3 weeks. Then suddenly I received a phone call, and now Jeff's leaving. Fortunately, he stayed for the few first days to help me build the system because it was his design. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I basically made a few modifications with regards to storage, a little bit of like a small shared storage for us to share files in the boot. I also added a second switch just in case, because we might talk about this a little bit later, but the whole studio was PoE or PoE++. So all of our cameras, all of our lighting, pretty much everything in the booth was PoE. So I always like to have a safety net or a fail-safe, so I insisted of having a second switch that we basically left in the box, never opened, but
I love it when it works like that, though.
That's it. So it didn't fail on us. Don't get me wrong. The system was rock solid, but just in case, because everything was relying on the network, I wanted to have a second switch. So those were small modifications, but Jeff's design was already rock solid, and it's great. I did send you some PDFs, so you might share it with the audience. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I basically added, let's call it safety. And I also added a little bit of shared storage just for us to. Basically, I was finishing a show and uploading it to a NAS, and then the editor was taking it from the NAS and starting editing. And within 2 hours, your shows, and along with Chris's show, were on YouTube.
Our shows, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, those were up pretty quick. So I want to jump into workflow 1 second, but let's just, so we've got a schematic of the plan. We're using Shure microphones in there. We had I don't want to miss anybody. I'm just kind of rattling from my memory here. But we were using preamp. Turtle AV for the preamp. The lighting, we had the ICANN lighting in there. We had a variety of cameras, and we were using QuickLink as the software to record and get everything. We have a couple of variations that go out. Some stuff is edited right there. Some stuff is later, but a variety of hardware. And I mean, there was a couple other things, some LG displays in there. We were running NDI as well.
NDI monitoring. I was sending you a mix feed, remember? So we didn't have communications. You couldn't hear me. Yes, you could hear me because the walls were thin, but our way to communicate to give you cues were basically visual cues. You remember? So I was basically I had a Bird Dog X1 camera pointing at me, and I was giving you. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was pretty bad.
Oh, you nailed it! You nailed it.
I was giving
Don't sell yourself short.
Feedbacks.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, in a room like that, especially Hugo, we're like so this was like a super creative way to say like because we can't see each other. And we couldn't hear each other. There's not really set up for comms. And we kind of considered some of these things, but it's like, I want to be in there to host. I don't want to have to.
It would have a layer of complexity,
Yes.
It was already I wouldn't say complex, but it was quite an extensive system. So adding another layer of complexity on top of this would make no sense, where I can give you like just visual cues like this. So it was easy.
Well, and
with the help of QuickLink, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having talked about it a little bit, it also could have led to it would have led to additional hardware being required, which is kind of one of the big things for me. Was like, we want that room is small, our workspace is not giant, and we've got a couple of computers out there and editors working as well. So this is taking up a lot of space, and that becomes a premium as well. So that's exactly a little bit of the hardware side. So now, of course, you got to go in and do the build out early so that everything can be ready. I'm sure I know for a fact you were in there a little early. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the build out, how that went, and how it was getting everything deployed and ready?
It was a learning experience for me, because everything. It was 3 days of building, along with the people who were here to build the actual boot.
Right.
Our job was separate from them building the boot. So, but fortunately, they were really good and were really helpful with us. But everything went super well. Everything was the wiring, hooking up everything. Everything was PoE, as I mentioned earlier.
Right.
So, day one, I think we did the lighting and a little bit of cameras. Day two, we started hooking up the microphone, which was microphones, which were Shure microphones with a Turtle AV preamp, PoE preamp. And we had the video monitoring on day two. And unfortunately, some of the master pieces, like the switcher, only came in on day three. And the internet, we had a MIRI, a bonding system, basically that leverages multiple 5G SIM cards, and basically it was a great system. But maybe one of the challenging thing is I was using Netgear for DHCP server for the day one, day two, and part of day three. But on day three, the bonding system, like the MIRI.
The router came in.
The X450.
Yeah.
The router came in, and I had to change my router. Basically, I had to change my DHCP server, and suddenly, it was a challenge. So
that's a messy thing to do once stuff's already been deployed and assigned and all that sort. So that can be a little bit of
lesson learned.
Yeah.
Don't do this. Don't change your switch from DHCP server to DHCP client like midway in the project. But fortunately, on day 4, we were ready to go, and I think we had a great show and a great experience. So, but learning experience. Don't don't try this at home.
Yeah, follow the right order. You know, it's a great example though, Hugo. Like, look, it just often can't work out that way, and everybody in the field knows. You know, you're on site, you're probably still waiting on some stuff to arrive, so you got to do what you can to utilize your time. So you guys did a fantastic job of that, and I just have to say, like, we have a great team. Every year I get to do the thing, and it's a ton of fun to be able to do this type of work. But this year was specifically like, I just got to focus on being a host, and that made my life so much easier because you guys really had it dialed. And this is not to overlook, you know, you're behind the desk. We've got Michelle and Alicia doing a bunch of work as well. Brandon is on the floor doing a bunch of things. We have, you know, it takes a village. All POE though. So the workflow a little bit. You guys were all working POE. You're recording at one desk. I have Michelle doing some editing in one room. We've got Alicia doing editing in another room. How are you moving files back and forth? How are they getting delivered? Can you tell us just a little bit about the workflow?
Good. So my QuickLink Studio Pro is basically a software switcher, but very, very powerful. It was paired with a hardware controller. So I had the real experience, just like being on a real switcher.
Yeah, you got a T-bar and all the switcher right in front of you, right?
I was cutting the show live. I was recording the program out and 3 ISO cameras. So I had 4 files that I was sending on a NAS, and then Alicia was taking all these files. Most of the time, my show, especially by day 2, it was pretty good. But you know, on day 1, I was still learning the thing. So
sure.
So she had to take some ISO recording and maybe replace some of my mix down sometimes. So we were sending that on a NAS, and then she was taking it, and we were collaborating with Midwish marketing team via a Media Silo, which is a solution that we distribute. It's a solution from It's a Chair. And we were also delivering content to our customer, our vendors, with Media Silo. So again, we had a very tight workflow. Within 2 or 3 hours, you were on YouTube already with your podcast. So that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was awesome. I just want to stress this too, man, because I don't know that people probably realize, but if we don't talk about it specifically, it may go over heads. Like, just for starters, getting reliable, good internet at a trade show is a huge obstacle. It's crazy.
Thanks to Miri,
Seriously. Yeah. Thanks to Miri, we got good, reliable internet and could now enable some of these more software IP-related workflows. In past years, I'm not even joking when I say, like, we would have to record to physical media and move those files with an external drive or whatever. Just to be able to stay on top of it because internet was such a reliability problem. So being able to get into a full software workflow, you guys had stuff up so fast. I mean, by the time I caught my breath, chatted with the people who left and got ready for the next one, that episode was up on YouTube already. It was so fast. It was great.
But to your credit, the fact that we focused on the production side of things, you were very, very well prepared for your podcast. So kudos to you.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Once a year, I clean. You know, see, I've been so busy, I haven't even had time to shave, man. But we go big for InfoComm. Hugo, I really appreciated being able to work with you, man. And we've had the opportunity to work together on some other stuff now. It's been a lot of fun. The podcast studios, the creative studios, the content creation stuff is not slowing down by any stretch. And so I appreciate you giving us a look into the workflow, a little bit of the hardware setup. We're definitely there's some resources below in terms of links to videos to do the walkthrough, which you did, which was great, and some files to see the layout and those types of things. Obviously, if you're here in the stateside, hit up at your Midwich rep, and you can get in touch with us to help design some of these spaces. If you're up north with our friends in Canada, you can reach out to your team at SFM, and they can do the same thing. Hugo, where can we find you coming up soon here? Are you out and about? I know you get a little bit of the mix of the field. You get some events going on and office time. So obviously behind the rack, we can find you guys on the YouTube channel all the time. But where can we find you out in the field coming up here?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn also. I have a LinkedIn profile. We will share that.
Yeah.
And yes, I work with both the Canadian and the U.S. team. So anytime a reseller has a project that involves a broadcast AV or broadcast, I will get involved in that project. So that contact your rep, and the rep's going to involve me, and I'll be working on your projects. Yes.
And I'll tell you, look, as a guy who is a stickler for, the little things, especially. It's been a pleasure because you are also, probably even more so than me. I swear it feels like.
Probably. Yeah.
And it really goes a long way though. And it really helps. Like our experience at InfoComm is partial to that. We can give some credit to all the people, but also that. So I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for joining us on the pod. For sure, we'll have you back. And I'm looking forward to coming and visit you guys up north, I think in the next couple weeks here. And
Yes.
joining you guys on a couple pods as well. So thanks for being with us, and we look forward to having you next time.
It was a pleasure, Joe. See you soon.
All right, there you have it, straight from Hugo, man. We got into, we could talk about this all day. I'm going to have Hugo back on. We've talked about doing a little bit of a deep dive. What I would say is linked below is the video. We mentioned it. Hugo does a walkthrough at the booth at InfoComm. We are starting to put together way more systems that look like this. They're often referred to as podcast studios, but really they're just utilized in creative spaces for marketing departments, whether it's podcasts on the regular, whether it's interviews that they want to do with their C-suite or their partners, anything where you want to make some creative videos, audio clips, and stuff like that. We're outfitting a lot more spaces with this type of equipment. So being able to go all networked and all PoE is very nice, not only from a flexibility standpoint to keep your deployment, a little bit flexible and easy to maneuver around and set up for whatever the space is calling for that day, but also just much easier to work with, and your deployment, your installation is so much easier. So definitely check out that walkthrough video and, hit up your rep, Midwich, SFM, wherever you are in the world. Hit up your rep and let them know you're interested. We can definitely get together and talk about some hardware solutions, hardware and software solutions for those spaces. So thanks so much for joining us. Shout out to Hugo for joining and giving us a little bit of insight. We'll have him back. Keep an eye out. I am heading up north in a couple of weeks to join our friends in Canada for a couple Behind the Rack episodes, their podcast that they do regularly. So I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned to the YouTubes, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. We appreciate the feedback and you guys sticking around and giving these a watch. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time on The Loop.